I'm John Hendrick, Senior Technical Writer for Wallaroo. Welcome to part of our forecast model tutorial series. In other parts of the series, we demonstrated how to create a forecast model, deploy it, and perform both batch and parallel inferences from simulated database. But what if we're not talking about a simulated database, but a real one with real data connections that we need to configure as part of our code? Can we store that information into Wallaroo itself so other users can pull it out and use it to create their data connections to data stores for retrieving or for storing inference results? Good luck. There is such a thing. And you could do it yourself with a free Wallaroo Community license that you can use to deploy Wallaroo Community into your own Kubernetes environment. Have all the fun with the Wallaroo documentation site at docs.wallaroo.ai and the Wallaroo Tutorials GitHub repository so you can deploy your ML models and run inferences to your heart's content. We'll go through our usual Wallaroo steps. Get our workspace, deploy our pipeline with a forecast model that predicts bike rentals. If you haven't seen that yet, go back, watch the other videos. Now, we're going to introduce a new item, the Wallaroo connection object. This stores in your Wallaroo instance the information you need to connect to, well, anything. It doesn't make the connection, it doesn't do the authentication. You'll have to do that yourself. What it does let you do is store the connection details, URLs, tokens, datasets, credentials, whatever, and then associate that connection information with a Wallaroo workspace so other users can refer to it. This way, your data scientists or ML ops engineers aren't running around trying to get the connection details to some data store or Kafka service or whatever. You create the Wallaroo data connection, and then they can refer to it in their own code. We'll be using Google BigQuery as our data store example. What I'm going to do is take our connection information that Google has as a JSON object and put it into Wallaroo as our data connection. Data connections in Wallaroo are composed of three parts: the name, the type, and then the JSON data used to make the connection. The name and type are whatever you want them to be. They're just strings that you use to label and organize your connections. The real meat of a connection is the details, the part that we use to make the connection. Here's my Google BigQuery connection information. I'm going to blur out the details and then generate a new set of credentials later anyway. But now, when I create my Wallaroo connection, I just store these details as JSON into it. Then, I can apply that connection to a workspace so any other members of the workspace can use it. How do we use it? Just like this. The details are all stored as JSON. By default, these details aren't shown when we display the connection, but we can pull them up, then use the details in the connection when I make my BigQuery credentials and client request. Then use those details to specify the table and dataset I'm going to use. The great thing about this is if these credentials later change, or if the dataset moves, or if the table is different for some reason, I as the end user don't have to care. The MLOps engineer would make all those updates, manage the certs, and then update the connection in Wallaroo. I just know my code will work when I call that same Wallaroo connection and then refer to those details to get the data I need or store the results that I've created. This makes the code much more flexible. After this, we'll do the same thing we did in the other training videos. This time, instead of using a simulated database, we're getting it from a real big kid database. First, we'll do it with just 1 week of predictions, then do the same thing with parallel infer to predict the next month. In a production environment, maybe I'd use callback functions to asynchronously handle data requests and inferences, but this is just a demonstration to show how we can grab the data from a BigQuery table, store it as a data frame in our list object, then use parallel infer to get all the results back as one set. The important thing here is that we've shown how to go from deploying our model to running sample inferences to a method of storing connection details in Wallaroo so they can be used at any time by any other Wallaroo user. In this case, we can now use our forecasting model with that connection configuration data to predict an entire month based on previous data, then store those results for other users using our Wallaroo connection. We can see we're taking the data that we gathered from our BigQuery table, putting it together into a single list of data frames, and then submitting it using the parallel infer method. This is exactly what we did with a simulated database, but now we're able to get those results in from a real database and then back out again to store the results later on. All the configuration detail is stored in our Wallaroo connection, so that can be updated at any time in the future, and this code will still run properly. If you want to try this out for yourself, check out the Wallaroo documentation site at docs.wallaroo.ai, and you can find this tutorial along with the links to the Wallaroo GitHub repository to download all the assets that you need: models, data, tutorials, so on. As I mentioned earlier, you can deploy a Wallaroo Community Edition into your own Kubernetes environment to try it out. The license is free, You can try out all of our tutorials and demonstrations by deploying your own models for inference, model testing, and other needs. I'm John Handrick, Senior Technical Writer for Wallaroo. Stay tuned for more videos about how to use Wallaroo with your ML models. See you next time.